Hello, welcome to the show. This is Renee Raketty, and this is my program, Renee Reports. And I'm glad that all of you can join me today. I have a lot of new technology. This is my second show, but I do have some special guests for you today. In the second half of the show, we're going to have Oliver Webb with Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound. He's going to tell us more about his organization and the work that he does there. He's also going to be telling us about the Transgender uh, Day of Visibility or Remembrance, excuse me, coming up in November, and about an unfortunate event that happening here in Seattle in our community. Also, we're going to have Hannah Saunders, who's a contributing writer of the Seattle Gay News. She'll also be with us to talk about that tragic event. But first, I wanted to talk to you about a couple things that I did. I wrote a story about Dave Upthegrove, who is a King County Council member. He represents the 5th District. He's represented the 5th District since 2014. I wrote a story for the Seattle Gay News, and it's out now. You can definitely check it out. It's both in print and online at sgn.org. So let me bring up the banner here. He was diagnosed with COVID-19 a couple weeks ago. I'm glad to report that he's made a full recovery. But the story goes into detail about his experiences. Obviously, he incurred a great deal of pain, a great deal of suffering while he was, experiencing COVID-19. But I think he had a very powerful message to share with us, and that is that if you have not been vaccinated, now would be a great time to do that. So basically, according to data from Public Health, Seattle and King County, and all of this is in my story, basically people who are not fully vaccinated were 8 times more likely to test positive for COVID-19, 46 times more likely to be hospitalized, and 78 times more likely to have died of COVID-19 related illness over the past 30 days. I spoke with Gabriel Spitzer, a communication specialist at Public Health, and he recommends that the most important step people can take to avoid catching and spreading COVID-19 is to get vaccinated. He said that those who have completed their vaccine series, but who do come down with COVID-19, should take additional precautions. So basically, if you've been vaccinated and haven't come down with COVID-19 yet, you definitely should take some additional precautions, such as wearing masks in public spaces, especially indoors and in crowded outdoor settings. So basically, I think, as you know, there's a number of variants that are out there who are now, unfortunately, spreading among the vaccinated community. Another thing that Gabriel told me with Public Health is that it's not really a failure of the vaccine itself. It's just that there is, people's immunity is beginning to wane, and that people are going out and interacting with more people, exposing themselves to the virus in the community. And that definitely, statistically, getting vaccinated is your best bet. Not only because, it protects you potentially from getting COVID-19, but that if you do get it, you're less likely to suffer adverse effects and require hospitalization. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that, let's see, pull it up. I'll pull it up for you. So I did do an interview with Nikita Thomas Kennedy. She's a candidate for city attorney here in Seattle. Excuse me. Oh, here it is. Okay. Wait. There we go. And she's running against an opponent who has, obviously has a lot of conservative credentials. She did run as a candidate in the Republican Party, and she also is backed by a number of Republican donors. Obviously, Nicole Thomas Kennedy has her own detractors, people who point to her tweets. She had made some tweets about the protests in Seattle, and obviously those tweets were made at a time where the Seattle Police Department were deploying a number of supposedly less than lethal means, such as blast balls, pepper spray and tear gas, against folks in the community, mostly peaceful protesters. A federal judge actually did call them out on that and hold them in contempt for their use of these weapons. In addition to that, um, so basically what she was saying is that, look, I made these comments. It was before I was running for office. I didn't intend at any point to, be a candidate for city attorney at that time, but I was more concerned about what I was seeing in my community, which is that people were getting gassed, folks were getting injured, and that for the most part, people were just, nonviolent protesters. I myself, I was injured during the protests on July 25th, and I saw the use of these weapons, and I saw how indiscriminate they were being deployed. So on that point, I can kind of understand where she's coming from. We talked about a variety of different issues that would face someone who would be city attorney. Everything from homelessness to drug addiction to mental illness to the scope of her office and her outlook. A lot of people point to the fact that she's an abolitionist, but someone who's just would use her office sort of to sort of sort of reform the way we do business here in Seattle. And one thing that I've noticed is that we've been doing things a certain way, which is prosecuting people that are homeless, prosecuting people commit minor misdemeanors, and we're getting basically the same results. We're not seeing any progress there. So she talks about that. She talks about the mental health courts and how she just feels like there could be a better use of this money. She also talks about domestic violence. So I encourage everyone to check out that interview. It'll air tomorrow at Malcontent News during the happy hour program at 8 p.m. And it will be in print on Friday in the Seattle Gay News, now called the SGN. So let me go ahead and take these banners off. So now I'd like to bring in Oliver Webb. He is the board chair of the Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound, just to talk more about his organization, the things that they do. Hi, can you see me? Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, I still can't hear you. Oh, no, you're not muted. I show your mic is not muted. Oh, hold on.
I saw it for a second. Can you hear me now?
Can folks hear you now?
It says that it can hear me.
I can't hear you.
It pretends it can hear me.
Can you hear yourself in the live stream? Oh, you can hear yourself.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Let's see.
It's pretending it can pick me up.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I can't hear you though. That's problematic. Let's go to the chat. Where's the studio chat? I apologize to everyone.
How about now?
My mic is showing green dots.
Yeah. It's saying it's working.
Oh, this is unfortunate.
This one.
Let me see if they can hear you in the comments.
Does this one work okay?
Morpheus said they can hear you. Let me pull up the live stream. And maybe I can hear you that way.
Oh, they can hear me, but you can't? Yeah, it's showing that it's picking up just fine. But if you can't hear me, that's not going to work okay.
For the folks. Let me go to my YouTube.
Oh yeah, they all can hear me. What if I leave and come back and see if it boots again? Because I can shut down all of the.
Okay, go ahead and speak.
How about now?
Go ahead and speak, Oliver.
I am.
Oliver, can you speak?
I'm speaking.
Oh, I can
Oh,
hear you now.
it's
Okay,
just.
so it's going to be a little convoluted
Mm-hmm.
because I have a delay here for hearing him. But anyway, so thank you for joining us, Oliver. I really appreciate you coming on the program. Hopefully there won't be too much of an echo for you folks that are listening. Let me see. Let me go to my notes.
That is
So
so
basically, I
late.
wanted to introduce Oliver. He was nice enough to share with me a little bio of himself.
That is so late.
Oh, so is it terrible for you guys? Can you hear that? I will make it work, folks. We'll make it work. So basically, Oliver was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, where he's been involved with the Seattle queer community for the majority of his life. For the past 5 years, he's been volunteering mainly within the trans and gender diverse community, working to make resources more readily accessible and expanded programming across the state. Oliver currently serves as the Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound board chair. Thank you for joining us, Oliver. Can you begin by just telling us more about your organization and what you do?
Sure. So Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound used to be Gender Alliance of the South Sound, and it only served Pierce County, basically. It's been around for about 17 years, and for the last year, we've been working to expand to all of Washington State. We also will assist any state that doesn't have readily accessible resources. So we do have members in California and Oregon, and we have a board member in Canada. So we went from having about 2 or 3 groups, which were just support groups a month, to we now have 5 to 6 groups per week. We go Monday through Friday, both in person and online, and we have 3 established programs, which consists of name aid, so we'll help you pay for your name changes, HRT supply kits, so we'll send you needles and syringes 2 months worth. And then we have an artist in residency program. So a 2 month rotation of local artists that help do our graphics, and we have a small stipend for that. And then we also have a full merch line, which is designed and drawn by local artists.
Fantastic. I would like to say I finally figured out the sound issue. How do we work this soundboard? First time I've used it. Um, thank you so much. So Oliver, you also have a number of social activities for people to do and to be involved in. Can you talk more about that?
We do. So we don't just do support groups anymore. So, like I said, we do Monday through Friday. We have a couple just regular social hangouts. So both Monday and Fridays are our tea socials. And so one's in the morning and one's in the evening. Also, every Monday night at Pony, we take over Pony in Seattle from 6 to 9 p.m. That's one of our in-persons, which is in Seattle, and then our other in-person is a hybrid on Fridays at the Rainbow Center in Tacoma, and that's going back to our roots. So we did start in Tacoma. That's one of our original groups, and now we've made it hybrid. We wanted to keep all of our accessible online groups, so we've committed to keeping every single one of them, despite continuing to go back to in-person. Tuesday nights is called Plugged In. So we either do a movie night or an online game session with our members. Wednesday mornings, we do mindfulness and yoga, which is accessible to all types of bodies. So we will, in real life, change it and modify it in any way we need to for those that are in the Zoom call with us. Thursday nights is the original group that I brought when I was the vice chair. I started out as, I guess, GAS is what it was at the time, GAS's vice chair. And I brought Trans 101, which just finished its 1 year. So now we're doing Trans 201. And it was more of an educational group because we believe that trans people and gender diverse people are more than just surgery. We don't all medically transition, and transitions start the day that we speak our truth into the universe, right? So the day that I say I'm trans, I'm transitioning. That may be the only way I ever transition. And that's valid. So we have a whole different life other than going to the doctor, getting shots, having surgery. So um, we want to meet the person where they are. And so we talk about things like discrimination in healthcare, self care. This month is all about self care. So we talk about coping skills, toxic families, um, what like when your egg cracks. So we have themed months. And then within those themed months, every Thursday has a different topic. And then leading into that, on Fridays is called every other Friday, other than the T, is called Transmission. And we ask people from our community to come and have intersectional groups where they talk about what they're an expert in. And so oftentimes it will actually connect with Thursday's group. So this week, actually, Thursday will be coping skills. Friday will be coping skills part 2, where we have an expert to come in and talk about coping skills with us. So we try and be as well rounded as possible to give everyone just a little bit of something. Maybe Monday doesn't work for you. Maybe you can't come to Pony. Maybe you don't want to have a social group. Maybe you want more of an educational group. Maybe you just want to come for mindfulness. Maybe you want a movie night. We try and keep it as well rounded as possible because, again, we're not all here for the same thing. Maybe you have different needs.
Now, a lot of people don't know there's currently a queer film festival happening here in Seattle right now. It's through the end of the week, I believe.
Yeah,
And
it ends on the 24th.
On the 24th, there's a whole bunch of like amazing movies that are being shown. I've seen about 3 myself, and I have to say each one of them has been truly fantastic. Um, and you two have been somewhat involved, or Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound has been involved in that. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, we co-presented Death and Bowling, which is a fantastic film. It was directed by Lyle Cast. It is an all trans cast film, which is either the only or the like second film to be completely cast by trans actors. And they were not like big name actors. They were just trans people that ended up being just phenomenal actors. And it has been picked up and it's actually coming out next year. And we were honored to be able to co-present this film. It showed on the 16th. We were able to come out and be there for the showing. And if you get virtual passes, you can see it anytime through the 24th. And then again, we'll be able to see it as it actually gets to premiere next year. And for sure, look up Lylecast and look up Death and Bowling. There is a trigger warning. They do talk about suicide. There is a suicide in it, but it is very much worth the watch. They really work on presenting us in an amazing light, and it's an amazing film. And $3 Bill Cinema and Seattle Queer Film Festival is always is an amazing. They're amazing orgs, and we love them.
Now, you mentioned this film virtually, and I myself saw it virtually. So, and I have to agree with you that this is an amazing film. And I think like you forget that this is an all trans cast. You really do because the acting is so fantastic and it really is beautiful from start to finish. I was really touched too by that little film that he made and showed to someone who is romantically interested in, and it sort of explains like that you're basically about to have relations with someone who's transgender, and it says so in such a beautiful way. It's not just like, hey, we're about to have intercourse, and by the way, I'm trans. It's a beautiful way of presenting it to somebody, and you know, I'm gonna have to record that portion of the movie and play it for folks before we have it. Um, because it is a hard conversation to have with someone, and we know that those conversations can go south so quickly. Would you have advice for anyone who like is trying to navigate like how to tell folks? By the way, I'm trans. I do want to make it clear, though, of course, that you don't have to tell anybody if you don't want to.
Yeah, I was going to start with that. Is that safety is paramount. If you if you don't feel safe in the situation, that outing yourself is never something that you have to do by any means. That we get a lot of pushback from society that we have to tell people, and that is 100% not correct. That you are not obligated by any means to tell anyone. I think it's something where if you are safe with someone, if you feel safe, um, that it's something that you'll feel right, like anyone else in any other relationship. It's a step where you would feel comfortable with this person. I think that's a feeling that you would get, right? Um, and make sure that you're in a safe space. I think that especially since we're talking about Trans Day of Remembrance and something that's happened in our state that doesn't happen very often. I think your safety is really important, and depending on when you're choosing to tell this person, making sure that maybe making sure you're in a place that's safe, that you have an out if things don't go right, that other people know where you are or that you're doing this, that we have to take a little bit more precautions than maybe cisgendered people do or cis het people need to do, even if we weren't trans, if we were just not heterosexual, that people also just need to do that. Um, if we were just cis and not heterosexual, we would also just need to make these precautions, because unfortunately that's the world we live in. That these are scary times, and it's important to take care of your safety and take a little bit more precautions, and making sure that um, you're telling people who you're with, and that you're making a little bit more safe decisions. We do a lot of things online. We do a lot of dating online. That's another one of those Trans 101 discussions we had with dating while trans, dating online, what that means, how we do that safely. That's our new reality. That's how we meet people, and how do you do that in a safe way while still being allowed to do that, while being a regular person. That's how people do that, right? We should be able to go to a bar. You should be able to go home with someone from a bar. But what does that mean for us? And how do you do that? Maybe you text your girlfriend and say, "Hey, this is who I'm going home with. This is the car I'm getting into. This is where I'm going." So, just I'd say some extra precautions. I think we're pretty good with gut feelings. We have to live with gut feelings. That's the majority of our life.
Yeah, as a single transgender woman, I have to go through this and navigate this on a regular basis. So I thank you for sharing those safety tips with us. Now, obviously, you invited me to speak, or Transgender Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound invited me to speak at the Transgender Day of Remembrance next month, November 20th, in Tacoma, um, which is an amazing opportunity. Obviously, we've lost too many people in this country to violence. One too many. Can you talk about this event, what it's meant to sort of, bring attention to, and how folks can participate in this?
Of course. Like you said, Trans Day of Remembrance is next month, exactly a month from today, November 20th. Um, I think that besides for Washington, it's obviously going to be a very important day for us as a state. It's going to be a very important day for us as trans individuals. Um, it's our first major event back during COVID last year. We were not able to mourn in person. Um, every single year, this number grows exponentially. I've tracked it 5 years in a row now. Um, and these numbers have doubled, just about doubled every single year. Um, and it's horrific. There's no other words for this. It's just unfathomable. And it's an important day for us to be able to come together and discuss these lives that are more than names on a list. These are people's kids and family members and friends, and they're our community. Um, And so, like I said, we haven't been able to come in person, and we are still making sure to make it as COVID safe as possible. So we are doing our in person in Pierce County, and Pierce County's numbers are still not great. So when I thought about a space, I wanted to get the biggest space possible that was open air, where we could still do this in a as COVID safe a space as we could find. So we have picked the Washington State Historical Society, which does have an exhibit right now um, about trans individuals in the West. So they're giving us the fourth floor mezzanine, which is a very large space. So we're hoping to keep it as safe as possible. We're also live streaming it. Another board member of ours, Astro Pittman, is the founder of Trans Day of Remembrance Seattle. So we are also going to hybrid it with Seattle. Seattle is looking for an in-person space as well, but we're having some more issues finding a space in Seattle. We're hoping to get a space in Seattle as well. So we will do this sort of 2.5 TDOR situation ran by DAPS. This is what happens when you have founded 2 TDORs in major cities. We roll with it and deal with COVID protocols. So our Tacoma event, or our Tacoma Seattle event, we'll have a couple speakers, which will include you. We're also trying to get a youth section, because I think that oftentimes we forget about the youth. We talk a lot about how this affects us as adults, and we have a lot of young adults that are murdered every year. And we forget the fact that our youth grow up in the same world we do. They don't have rights. They are forgotten about. They are erased just like we are. And they come at this from a very different perspective than we do. And we often don't bother to ask them how they feel about any of this. So we are specifically reaching out to our youth orgs and seeing if they would like to participate, so that we can hear from them as well on this day. So we want to give them that space as well. And then we will end with a candlelight vigil as well. And we're hoping to bookend it with Seattle, so that we will live stream to them as well. So that's our plan for it. We really wanted to make sure that we had an in-person event this year, since we weren't able to do it last year. And on top of that, I have reached out to our stadiums and city halls, and our members are doing the same. And we're asking that they fly the progress flag, because most only have the progress flag, at half-mast this year, in a show of solidarity. We normally only have that done during Pride Month. And we're asking that that happen both for TDR and because we've lost someone in our state. The last time that had happened was Nikki Kuhnhausen, and that ended in a bill being passed. So we've only lost 2 in the last decade. We're not, Texas or somewhere else in the South. We don't lose, dozens of people per year. We're very lucky in that way. So we think it's very important that our state stands behind us and helps educate the rest of our state, and those that may not know that this happens every single year, that we lose this many people, and that this really touched us this year, that it came home to our doorstep.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a moment. But I also wanted to ask you, because obviously there may be some youth who are questioning their gender identity, who may need, some help or looking for resources. What role does Diversity Alliance Puget Sound play in providing resources or resource referrals?
So we don't deal with, or we don't work with youth specifically. We work with anyone above, I guess, 18 and up. We have some amazing youth programs in the state, luckily, just fantastic youth programs. It's sort of a rite of passage to come through Lambert House. We all did it if you grew up here. So we have lots of youth programs, and then if you're 18 and up, you are more than welcome to come through Diversity Alliance. However, because like you said, I have been part of the queer community since I stepped out of the womb, basically. Um, I I will take any emails from anyone who needs help with resources, and I will assist in finding those resources. When I stepped onto the board, our biggest goal was that people will not fall through the cracks. We have a lot of issues where someone will be sent to an organization, and if that organization can't help them, they get shoved to another organization or back and forth. And my worry is that someone wouldn't be transitioned due to that, or something could happen, and that's not our job, to push people away or forget about them or not follow through. Our job is to serve our community. And so our biggest goal at DAPS is to follow through with that and to follow up with you. And so if we can't help you at DAPS, we will find someone who can help you. So if you're in Arizona and you're not able to find resources, send me an email. I will find you resources in Arizona. If Arizona can't help you, you can come to our online groups. I don't care. Our job is to help you with whatever it is you need. And so I get a lot of emails all the time that's like, hey, my nephew is transitioning. Their parents need help. I will look for resources for you. So it's not that DAPS doesn't necessarily do it. We will find you resources. We just may not have those groups. So hopefully that answers your question.
Um, you've talked about the many social events you have, sort of the different groups you run, the events that people can participate in. A lot of this information is available online at Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound's social media. Can you tell people where to find you?
Yes. So our website has just about everything, and then we're also on socials. So we're on Twitter. We don't use our Twitter as much. We should. And then we use our Instagram and our Facebook constantly. And then, like I said, every Monday night at Pony, we're physically there from 6 to 9 p.m. And then at the Rainbow Center in Tacoma, we're physically there from 7 to 9 p.m. On Fridays, every single Friday. And then all of our programs come with us to any event that we're at. So anytime we're in person, our programs are physically there. So if you, like I said, our HRT program, I physically bring our HRT program with us. So if you needed needles, if you needed syringes, it is physically with me. I can hand them to you at any event we're at. If we're at Pride, we have it. If I'm at Pony, we have it. You can sign up for Name Aid at those places, which is a little different than lots of orgs. They don't always have those things on them. I literally sit at a bar with those things with me. So yeah.
I do want to talk about something that's tragic that happened in our community. And I actually read about it on your Facebook page. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that. For those who don't know, Zoella Zoe Rose Martinez was a 20-year-old transgender woman, a woman who happens to be trans, who was brutally murdered in our community here. Her body was found here in Seattle, although the murder itself may have happened somewhere else. And we actually have Hannah Sanders, contributing writer to the Seattle Gay News, who will talk about that case and about a court hearing tomorrow and answer any questions you might have about that. But let me go ahead and bring up a picture so folks can get to know who we're talking about here. So this was posted on your Facebook page. Can you tell us more about this and, what it means for someone to be the 30th person who died who happens to be trans or non-binary in our community?
I can. So Zoe was the 38th. As of, I believe, last week, we are at 42. And Zoe was murdered on September 1st. So, like I said, these numbers are huge every single year. So I found out about Zoe. We have several people close to me that were friends with Zoe's family. And I started getting news reports pretty early on. And Zoe's family had not listed her as trans in any of the news reports and had very specifically asked that they not, which often happens. And so I did know, but it is not anyone's job to out anybody. And so we knew and just continued on. Um, and then her killer had been arrested. Um, and so I continued to get sort of talked to by members that were like, "Hey, are we going to do anything about this?" And I was like, what do you want me to do?" Like, I don't know. Then I heard that the family wanted to know about TDOR, and so eventually I reached out to the family and was like, "Hey, I wanted to offer our support. We're really happy that he was arrested. Would you like help getting her on on the list, because we have connections to the HRC and I keep long lists, or like the correct list. There's always a lot of discrepancies due to dead naming and things like that. Um, for those that don't know, oftentimes the media will dead name trans individuals, so it's really hard for people to keep lists. And so oftentimes our lists don't always match up. And so at the end, right before TDOR, we all compared lists so that we get correct numbers. And those of us who have connections with HRC will often send them to HRC so that the lists are correct. So I reached out to Zoe's family and offered my support and asked if they wanted Zoe to be added to this list and if they wanted to be involved in any way. And they said yes, that they had always, loved and honored their daughter and her transition. And it sort of went from there. They gave me permission to write the post that now just about everyone has seen. Um, and that's, basically it. I have tried my best to keep anyone away from the family that shouldn't be contacting them. As we all know, there becomes trolls and negative comments, and we luckily haven't seen a lot of that. I Most people have found me, which I'm really happy that the family has been blocked a lot from that. I posted it, and then also DAPS posted it, um, and so and Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound, we go by DAPS because it's a very long name. So we both posted it on the pages, and it's been shared tens of thousands of times. And what was really sad is that a lot of her friends did not know because there had only been the couple news articles. And since then, HRC and them and other big news articles have been written. Um, and so the goal really is to honor Zoe and to honor this family in the best way we can, and to let them know that there's a community for them and for their daughter, and to make sure that she's honored in a way that everyone else has been. Um, and I think that they deserve this versus the worst day of her life being the last thing. Sorry, the last thing that they see is these awful articles that are written about their daughter.
Hmm.
And so it became this thing that seemed really important for us to write, are these articles where her parents get to talk about how amazing she was versus these awful things about what happened about her. So it was really important for us to change the narrative.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for doing what you're doing, for being a support for this family. I obviously had seen the news reports. I didn't know she was transgender. Um, and then, you know, I was asked to look into this, and I finally read the court documents for myself. And when I say it's brutal and tragic, um, those words don't even possibly begin to describe what happened to Zoe. As you mentioned, Zoe is a human being, and like any other transgender American, she deserved to be respected. And we live in a society and a culture, unfortunately, that um, our lives are being used as by politicians who are using us to get reelected, to get votes, and it's so disgusting. what's happening not only in transgender youth sports, but when it comes to bathrooms, when it comes to just living our lives in our in communities, and things like that breed violence. We don't know if that's exactly what happened in this case. To actually discuss the details of what happened, I have asked Hannah Sanders to dig in to these court documents and to share what she knows. I'm going to bring her in now. And then, Oliver, I'm going to bring you back after we're done talking to her, okay?
Perfect.
Hannah, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
People may not know, but the two of us are very familiar with one another. We both write for the Seattle Gay News, now known as the SGN. And honestly, for those who don't know, Hannah's like just an amazing talent. And I look forward to reading anything you write, every single day.
Renee, likewise.
Thank you so much. Um, Now, you have the unenviable task of digging through these court documents to sort of laying out for us, moment by moment, the details of her last moments. And it is brutal and it is disgusting. And honestly, if you have small children watching, I would recommend strongly that maybe you ask them to leave their room, or that you're there to answer the questions and to be a support to them, because the things we're going to talk about are deeply disturbing. So go ahead, Hannah, maybe talk about sort of what happened from beginning to end, and then we can get into details about what happens next.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it is very brutal in terms of what happened. It looks like Zoella, she, on August 31st, she tried to meet up with a male because she believed that he stole $1,000 from her and she wanted that money back. And I'm just going to go over some of the things that happened during that meeting. So it looks like they met in a Maple Valley parking lot, and she was last seen by her friend. She texted one of her friends because she was scared to go meet this person alone. So I think she was being wise and trying to do this, the proper thing. And she was last seen by her friend in the car driving off. Sorry, everyone. This is very, very hard to talk about. It looks like early at 4:54 a.m. on September 1st, Seattle PD, they were flagged down and directed towards her body. She was lying on the ground in an alley in Seattle. And the Seattle PD homicide and CSI units and the King County Medical Examiner's Office, they were all called to process the scene. When they found her, she had a purse on her, but it had been emptied. She had no ID, no phone, no personal belongings, and detectives started looking into CCTV footage and talking to witnesses. They spoke with one witness who said that around midnight on the 31st, they walked down the alley and they didn't see anyone. Then they spoke with another witness who said at around 1 a.m. they saw a female lying in the alley, and they just continued to walk by because they thought she was intoxicated and passed out. King County Sheriff's Office, they were contacted. Looks like the friend had filed a missing persons report at a bit past 10 p.m. on the night of the 31st. And I'll just go over some of the details. I saw the police reports and the full law enforcement investigation. And this is what the friend says happened. They were meeting up for the money, and the friend knew about the incident. The friend is referred to as AC by law enforcement. And before Zoe left, she sent her friend a screenshot of his Facebook profile picture. And the friend had actually been in communications with him previously. It didn't emphasize or expand on what that was in relations to, but on the night of the 31st, Zoe texted AC the location, the meeting location, and AC was late. When Zoe texted AC, she said that the man was 6 minutes away, and at that time, AC was 8 minutes away. She was late by 2 minutes. AC pulled up to the parking lot with her boyfriend, and she saw her friend sitting in the passenger seat of a white or light colored car. And as soon as she parked, that car sped off, and she tried to follow, but according to her, the car was going over 100 miles per hour, and she lost the vehicle at an intersection that they sped through. She went back to the parking lot, waited for her friend, called her friend. She left, I assume, to go look around, but then she returned to the parking lot, and she ended up filing a missing persons report. And I'm sorry, it's a lot. It's a lot of information. I have info from the medical examiner too, and there was a timeline that I saw in the law enforcement investigation, and again, Zoe was just trying to do the right thing, trying to, I know what it's like to be a 20-year-old, and gosh, if I, get $1,000, that's a lot, that's so understandable. Do the right thing by contacting your friend to be there with you. That's safety 101. She was doing it. She did it. And when I look at that timeline, Renee, I think I messaged you earlier about this. It was 23 seconds between the time Zoe was shot in the passenger seat of the car in the parking lot, and then her friend arrived, and that car instantly drove off. 23 seconds between the shooting and the arrival of her friend.
When we say shot, we mean 5 times.
5 times, yeah. Yeah.
I know we talked already about, how her body was located, and it's just tragic from beginning to end. And this is something did not happen far from my home. At least that's where it ended. Now, there is a court hearing tomorrow. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so it looks like, let's see, the defendant was on the run for about a month after everyone was trying to locate him, and the U.S. Marshals got involved, found him in an apartment in Renton. They tried to call him out, and he was hiding under a bed. He got arrested, and it looks like the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, they received a completed investigation from law enforcement on October 7th, and they filed 2 charges against the guy, murder in the 2nd degree and unlawful possession of a firearm in the 1st degree. And it looks like they asked the judge to set his bail to $5 million, which is an extremely high amount, and that's because of the threat he poses to society and because his likelihood of just not showing up. And his arraignment hearing is tomorrow morning, so we'll see what happens then.
Now, there were no hate crimes charged in this case, at least so far, right?
As far as we know, no. I believe it was all about Zoe trying to get her money back. I didn't see anything about that in any of the documents.
Now, of course, there's more details to come out in the future as this court case moves forward through the court system. That is maybe what the extent of their relationship was before she had this fraud committed against her. You know, this is a hard issue to talk about, especially as a trans woman, because so easily something like this could have happened to me, um, you know, or any trans woman, honestly, in Seattle. Now, this had to do with fraud. It didn't have to do with maybe her gender identity. And we don't know if this individual who committed this brutal murder, allegedly,
He
knew.
does have he has a long history of juvenile felony charges as well as adult felony charges. So I'm wondering if after all the robberies and stolen vehicles and break-ins caught up with him, and I'm not sure, but he does have a pretty shady past. I mean, back to 2013, he's my age, 24 years old. That's, God, I was a baby back then, and I truly do wonder if there was hate specifically because she was a trans woman, or because it had just, all of his crimes had spiraled over almost a decade now. It's a lot to digest. That's for sure. What are your thoughts, Renee?
Well, my thoughts are, as a transgender woman, that I'm going to hold those that belittle me and my community accountable. So if you're a conservative lawmaker and you're using the lives of transgender youth, the lives of transgender individuals to get reelected, to get votes, or to move your political career forward, shame on you. Because honestly, when you put out that kind of message that these people are less than, people get the message that it's okay to murder, to brutalize transgender individuals. And we see it time after time after time. Oliver just mentioned there's 40 plus people now who are dead this year alone, transgender and non-binary individuals, due to violence. We're not saying all of those were because they were trans, but if you look at the statistics, Black, Indigenous people of color especially are the most at risk for brutal murders and violence, And if you're going to use us as a political football, shame on you. Shame on you. Now, we don't know if that has anything to do with this murder, but, that's my thoughts. And I'm just tired of reading about one more murder in this nation. And of course, this murder, hits particularly hard because this is in my community and her body was found in an alleyway just a mile from me, So I don't want to get emotional, but this is an important topic. And I want to bring Oliver back in because we need to figure out what we're going to do next. You know what I mean? We have the court case. As you mentioned, it's moving forward. There's a hearing tomorrow. Charges have been filed. But maybe how can the community, get involved? What can they do to make sure that justice is served in this case? Now, he's alleged of these crimes. As you mentioned, he has a long history, a long rap sheet of committing violent acts, including as a juvenile. And the facts of this case, I obviously have read the court documents. You've read the court documents. You've obviously looked into this more than I have. The evidence is pretty damning, and it's going to be a very tough defense for him. And so I certainly would not, the facts are pretty clear to me. As you mentioned, there is video surveillance. There is a timeline. There are witnesses involved. This is going to be very, very hard, including, cell technology, and pinging his cell phone or her cell phone.
Right.
So the technology also is very damning in this case and points to one individual. Are we able to name that individual?
Yeah, I'll name him. His name's Jakari Rashad Hardy.
Okay. So he has a court hearing tomorrow. So be looking out for that. And obviously this will be in the news as this case moves forward. Let me bring Oliver back in. Oliver, I wanted to ask you, what can the community do to support, obviously, the victim's family, but also to ensure justice is done in this case?
So right now, I mean, the family needs time to grieve. I think that that's the biggest thing, especially as we go into the arraignment. I know that Hannah's going to the arraignment. I also plan on going to the arraignment tomorrow. I think that it's important to allow space and time as this continues, but also making sure that we are continuing to vote for these things and making sure that you're voting for um, you're voting locally for stuff that has to do with like prosecution and trans rights are really important as things like this happens. And if you want to go to these hearings, if you want to um, go to things as this comes up, but making sure that you're cognizant that the family could be there, cognizant that her friends and her community's there, and not making it about you and um, not making it a protest, right? So people have reached out and being like, are there going to be actions? And a lot of times we saw this a lot with like Black Lives Matter, right? So there would be families that would speak out and be like, hey, I don't want there to be a protest about my child. And people wouldn't listen. So um, there are times and places for this. We've lost a lot of people in this community. We're at 42. Trans Day of Remembrance is a time that we can remember our entire community, those that we know have been lost and those that we don't know. 42 are just the ones we know of, those that have been reported, those that we have figured out were dead named. Use that time to reflect on those that were lost. Go to a local Trans Day of Remembrance. Honor those people. Honor Zoe. If you know someone that knew her, support that person. Um, you know, you've seen the posts. I'm sure you've seen them. Leave a comment. They will see it. Um, but give space. Allow her community to heal during this time too. Um, yeah, and you know, just be cognizant of that as well. But we all need time to heal as well during this community, and as Seattle and as Washington. This happened here, and it's scary. I mean, Renee talked about it as being a trans woman, as being trans people ourselves. It's scary. It could have been any one of us, and we don't know if this had to do with her being trans, and we may never know. Honestly, we don't know what he was doing in that car. We don't know if he ever knew. And talking about it being a hate crime, it's very, very hard to get um, hate crimes attached to charges. It's a really hard thing to do, even if it's like very cut and dry. It's sort of the same thing with like things that have to do with like police shootings and stuff. It's the same thing. We've seen these things on like videos, right? And you're like, no, it's very clear. Yeah, but it's not sometimes. Like legislation is really hard, and that's why I say like vote, right? So we need to make sure that these things, we're always pounding the pavement for these things, because it really falls to the DA and what they think they can prove. And what happened in that car, there wasn't someone recording that. There's no camera in there, more than likely, right? We don't know what those last words were, so we may never know. And adding a hate crime stipulation to that is going to be a really hard battle for the DA. And so, second degree murder and a first degree gun charge may be the best thing we get. And our goal is to get that man behind bars and off this street so he can't do this to another person, so we don't lose another 20-year-old.
Well said, Oliver. I'm going to put my social media on the bottom of the screen. As soon as Hannah's done with her story and it's printed in the SGN, I'm going to definitely include that in my link tree. You'll be able to go to that story and read, Hannah's beautiful story. As you've already heard tonight, she went into great detail. She really leaves no stone unturned. She really digs through every page, of these court filings, every page of these King County coroner documents. So all of it will be in your story. Is that right, Hannah?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I do heavily research based pieces, but I really don't want to focus on the negative too much.
Mhm.
Perhaps the court outcome. I don't know. Do you two think in trans killings that there truly is justice? Is there like a court sentence that's
No, nothing will bring this woman back.
yeah? It's going to be a hard one. That's for sure.
Now,
Hard one to cover. I mean,
and my understanding is that we don't have a timeline for the story. It's whenever you feel it's ready, whenever we're ready to run with it. Unlike other publications, the SGN is not about sensationalism, it's about community. Because we serve the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex plus community. And that's what we're about. So this will be to inform the community of the facts of the case, make sure that they have the best information. We're going to be totally devoid of all the sensational, aspects of it. Um, so is there anything you wanted to add, Hannah?
oh, no. I mean, this leaves me pretty speechless. I'm happy to be covering it, but I wish it never happened. It's
And Oliver,
that's
as I
all
mentioned,
sad
just the
too.
first, it is very sad. Oliver, like I mentioned with Hannah, I'm going to link tree and put her story in my link tree when it's published. I don't know when that will be. I'm also going to put your post or the post from the Diversity Alliance of Puget Sound about the situation. And then also I will be, on my social media forwarding any tweets, any Facebook posts that you guys make about this case. The goal here is to make sure the community is informed. And that's what, we hope to do tonight is to just let people know that a tragedy has occurred in our community, that tragedy being a transgender individual, and that, justice, needs to be served. Um, and that, we will continue to bring you the facts and messages from the family as this case moves forward. And until, there's a ruling in this case. Now, let me see if there's any questions in the comments. We do have a great mod who's been posting in our Twitch, the link tree, who's been posting the Diversity Alliance of Puget Sounds information. Thank you so much. And yeah, as you mentioned, the story will be posted at sgn.org. And once again, the email for Oliver is Diversity Alliance. Oh, sorry, the website is diversityallianceofpugetsound.org. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
So at this point, it's so hard to talk about anything else. It's just such a tragic situation. I don't even know where to begin. So just to lighten the mood, I want to talk a little bit about, some fun things. As you know, I'm a huge fan of haunted houses, and I went to both of the haunted houses here in Seattle, and I took a couple, clips, but I was too busy enjoying the evening. So, but let me bring that up for you. So the first haunted house that I attended was Now Nightmares on Lake Terrace, and that is more of a family-friendly haunted house. It's kind of a festival atmosphere, and there's a little bar. There's food trucks. There's a free photo for you and the family. So if you have little ones, I think this is your best bet. And then the same night, yes, because I am that person who loves haunted houses, I went to the Georgetown Morgue in Seattle, and that one definitely was more for an adult crowd. It was a little scarier. Someone brought their little one, and their little one was grabbing onto me, making it impossible for me really to navigate this haunted house very well. But both of these haunted houses do have escape rooms and mazes and things. It's a real fun atmosphere. It's kind of pricey if, we're talking about the Nile Nightmares, it's $25 for general admission. Plus, I paid an extra 10 to do VIP access, so I didn't have to wait in the really long line on a Saturday night. So it was about $35 altogether. And then also the Georgetown Morgue. My ticket cost $30, but I got it through the Seattle Gay News, my association with them. But I did see on the board, I think that the VIP was like $50, $55. So it's not cheap. But if you're looking for something to do on the weekend, it is a lot of fun. So go ahead and play a little clip that I took. If I can find that. Here it is. Oh, this guy does not look friendly. Yeah. Ah. So obviously it's the 9 o'clock hour. I did plan to tell a ghost story. I understand Oliver had some ghost stories of his own. After that discussion, obviously I don't feel like getting into it. But you can certainly ask me, or visit my social media and send me a private message, and I'll tell you all about my ghost experiences. But I want to thank everyone for joining us, especially our guest tonight, Oliver, Hannah, and for you, the viewer, who are watching. I'm sorry it was such a dark topic tonight, but sometimes when things happen in your community, you can't avoid it and you need to address it. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank all the mods for, keeping the conversation going, providing the information that you all need in the chat. Thank you so much.